President Trump delivered a rare 25-minute primetime address from the White House East Room, only his third of this kind since taking office. And he opened it exactly the way you'd expect a man running on record economic and border numbers would open it. He touted the golden age, lower prices, zero illegal border crossings sustained over the past year, the lowest national murder rate in 125 years, record levels of investment nationally. But then he pivoted, and the tone in the room clearly changed.
These disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail.
And that's a very nice summary of Trump's series of bombshells that he delivered last night. So bottom line, Trump revealed that the CIA itself confirmed that voting machines throughout the country are catastrophically insecure. That's not a conspiracy theory anymore. That's the CIA. That's our intelligence agencies. He revealed that China accessed the voter files of 220 million Americans. He revealed that hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are still listed and active on the voter rolls, and that a rogue faction inside our own intelligence community ran what one internal email literally called a shadow government to hide it all from the sitting president, as well as some bombshell revelations coming out of the state of Michigan. President Trump announced the immediate declassification of intelligence covering 4 separate tranches of election vulnerability. It was released simultaneously as the speech on a White House document portal, so everyone can read the underlying material themselves rather than take his word for it. That's actually rather significant and worth pondering here. Whatever you think of the framing, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, releasing the primary documents alongside the speech is a pretty impressive transparency move that most previous administrations would never make. So again, the legacy media can cover their eyes and stick their fingers in their ears all they want. Trump he's not just speeching, he's showing the evidence to the American people so they can see it for themselves. Or another way of saying it, he ain't just preaching, he's practicing. So let's break down. Again, you can go to the website. I think you just put White House election integrity in your Google search, and you'll see these 4 pillars, these 4 tranches of documents. So pillar 1 involves the vulnerabilities in our voting and ballot counting systems. The declassified intelligence community assessment spanning from January 2025 all the way through June of this year, just last month, they state plainly that adversary nations like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea possess the technical capability to compromise American election infrastructure. But the single most alarming document in this entire release involves Venezuela. CIA reporting indicates that Nicolas Maduro's regime specifically plotted to digitally alter U.S. vote totals in a manner that would be undetectable through a standard post-election audit. Now, again, sit with that for a moment. This is not a hypothetical vulnerability. It's an actual documented plot by a hostile foreign government to manipulate our vote count and leave no trace of having done so. So that's the first pillar that the White House dropped. Our intelligence communities, keep in mind, the very intelligence communities that the legacy media has been depending on and touting for the last 5 years as proof that there was absolutely no corruption whatsoever in the 2020 election. Those same agencies have now revealed massive vulnerability in our voting systems. You see, this is why no one takes the legacy media seriously anymore. Democrats do. But the legacy media can't have it both ways. Those very same agencies that the legacy media has fawned over, the same legacy media agencies that the intelligence agencies, the legacy media has affirmed over the last 5 years, have now come out and revealed the very things the legacy media wants to deny. The only reason why they affirm or deny is if it hurts the Republicans and helps the Democrats. That's the standard, not facticity. That's exactly what they did with the Russian collusion hoax. And it's exactly what they did with the Hunter Biden laptop. It's exactly what they did with Elon's supposed Nazi salute. It's all pro-Democrat, anti-Republican propaganda, nothing more. All right, so that's pillar one. Pillar two, China's acquisition and exploitation of American voter data. So this is where the story gets its biggest number here. Documents show that the Chinese Communist Party illicitly acquired the voter files of roughly 220 million Americans beginning in 2020, which is described in the White House's own materials as the largest election data compromise in American history. But buried inside that very same pillar is the part I think that matters even more, because it's not just about an enemy from without, it's about an enemy from within. The documents allege that officials within our own intelligence community knew about the breach, but they actively suppressed it and they downplayed the true scope of China's meddling, even keeping the full picture from both the American public and reportedly from President Trump himself. Now, if that holds up, this is not just foreign interference anymore. This is not just a foreign interference story. It's a domestic accountability story about who inside our own government decided that the president didn't need to know about foreign influence. It's both foreign and domestic interference that work together to compromise the integrity of the 2020 election. Pretty explosive stuff. Pillar three is the Michigan investigation. So what I like about his presentation last night is he had these big macro pictures, but then he focused in micro here. Again, there were reports that he was going to talk about Georgia, but it turns out it is Michigan. The declassified FBI files reference a 2020 raid by Michigan State Police on a Democrat-aligned canvassing operation in the city of Muskegon. Now, according to the documents, the canvassers involved admitted to forging voter registrations and fabricating non-existent voters, allegedly in exchange for gift cards. Again, you can't make this stuff up. The White House's materials state that this investigation was deliberately slow-walked for years by the Biden Justice Department rather than pursued to its conclusion. So here we have an actual example of voter fraud happening in Michigan in 2020. And then the fourth pillar involves the shocking amount of non-citizens on state voter rolls, even as we speak. So the Department of Homeland Security identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens registered to vote in federal elections. And critically, the White House notes that this figure is almost certainly an undercount, because several Democrat-run states have refused to hand over their complete voter files for federal cross-referencing against citizenship records. Ask yourself why a state government would decline that request if it had nothing to hide. And so in sum, the four tranches of evidence reveal that voting machines throughout the country are catastrophically compromised or insecure, that China accessed the voter files of 220 million Americans, and that a rogue faction inside our own intelligence community ran what one internal email literally called a shadow government to hide all of it from the sitting president. 3, that the state of Michigan in particular was caught in voter registration fraud And then hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls. And so, of course, President Trump summed up these findings with a passionate appeal to voters all across America to do precisely this.
To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together, we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
So that's what the speech was ultimately all about. Obviously, there was a lot of conjecture about what President Trump would be doing last night. We reported on reports that he would actually be flanked by CIA Director John Ratcliffe and the acting director of National Intelligence, Bill Pulte, Mark Wayne Mullen of Homeland Security, Kash Patel, the FBI. I do think that would have been super cool, visually speaking, but it was hardly necessary. I mean, he obviously made his 4 points very clearly. And I do have to admit, I was somewhat disappointed because there were reports that Trump was just going to say a pox on both Congress and the courts. I'm just going to make a national security emergency declaration, right? We talked about that the other day. The reason why I was hoping for that is because a national security emergency declaration is virtually immune from both the courts and Congress. The courts can easily strike down, say an EO, an executive order. But they can't easily strike down a national security declaration any more than they can stop Trump from going to war. A national security emergency declaration is a completely different vehicle from just simply an EO. The Supreme Court ruled back in 1983 that a national security emergency can only be overturned by Congress, and that's a 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress. Good luck with that, right? So the Senate filibuster can't touch an national security emergency declaration. The parliamentarian can't rule it out of order. And Trump has already used it. There's some precedent here. He used it back in 2019 to build the border wall when Congress refused to fund it. And it worked, right? So frankly, I got to admit, I was hoping for that. I was hoping for Trump to just give a big middle finger to both the courts and Congress and just completely bypass all that nonsense with a national security emergency declaration. But we did note in our reporting that if Trump stopped shy of formally declaring a national security emergency, then what he will do is he will provide the momentum that the SAVE Act needs to now pass the Senate with a simple majority and overcome any objections from either the rhinos or from the parliamentarian who may try to stop that. The parliamentarian could be totally ignored. In fact, Thune could fire her, as I understand it. But Trump would be, we noted Trump would be giving otherwise weak-kneed Republican senators at least the cover they needed to override the parliamentarian in the event that she tries to overrule the inclusion of the SAVE Act in the latest national security appropriations bill. And with Susan Collins on board, with Congress, with the House passing a national security appropriations bill with the Save America Act attached to it, the Senate now has the opportunity to pass it with a simple majority, with J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote.